Riley, FDNY Commissioner Sal Casano, Emergency Management Commissioner Joe Bruno, Buildings Commissioner Robert Lamandry, Transportation Commissioner Jeanette Sadakan, and Chancellor of the Department of Education Dennis Walcott. As I think by now everybody knows, about 2 hours ago, like people up and down the coast, New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs felt the effect of this afternoon's earthquake, which we're told was centered in Virginia just outside Richmond. The U.S. Geological Survey reports that there was also a smaller aftershock in the Virginia area that was not felt here, and we're staying in touch with the USGS for further updates. Thankfully, the NYPD, FDNY, Buildings and Transportation Departments, and other city agencies have reported no major damage or injuries or transportation or utility service disruptions in our city as a result. As of now, we have investigated 2 reports of possible minor damage. In all cases, we are not evacuating buildings. At the Red Hook West Housing Authority development in Brooklyn, there was a partial chimney collapse. Bricks fell from the chimney to the roof and on top of a water tower, but nobody was injured. The NYCHA and Buildings Department engineers, as well as the NYPD and FDNY, have responded and says the building is safe for re-entry. Engineers are assessing the next steps that may need to be taken. Another incident on 4th Avenue in Brooklyn was investigated, and engineers concluded no damage occurred as a result of the quake. But I think it's safe to say property owners should do due diligence and visually inspect buildings for cracks and contact building management in the city if they feel the situation warrants it. Turning to transportation, flights in and out of Kennedy, LaGuardia, and Newark airports have resumed. Amtrak service in and out of Penn Station was also suspended for about half an hour before resuming. As a precaution, Transportation Department bridge inspectors are visually inspecting the major river crossings, but there is no indication of any damage. The Department of Environmental Protection reports no damage to the water infrastructure in or outside the city. As a precaution, we are continuing to inspect dams and other significant infrastructure. Calls to 911 and 311 naturally spiked, but have returned to normal levels for this time of day and year. Let me just remind New Yorkers to only use 911 for genuine emergencies. We have activated the Office of Emergency Management's Situation Room. We also evacuated City Hall briefly just before 2 p.m., but quickly returned to work. And now I do understand for many people this was a stressful afternoon, but so far we've been lucky to avoid any major harm. Our thoughts are clearly with the people of Virginia and other areas more directly affected by the earthquake. Let me, before we take questions, summarize today's announcement for Spanish-speaking New Yorkers. El terremoto que sentimos en nuestra ciudad no resultó en daños.
Okay, so Mayor Michael Bloomberg essentially saying, you know, airports in the New York area back to normal, Amtrak back to normal. Also said, you know, there are bridge inspectors who will be out and about checking the bridges, but thus far.
Tres Odensay. And with that, we'll be happy to take some questions. Miss.
Are there any forecasts on future earthquakes or aftershocks? If there are any aftershocks, what are the advisories that our cities?
You'll have to talk to the Geological Survey. Typically, an earthquake of this size has aftershocks that diminish with time. We live in a part of the country that has very few earthquakes, and certainly very few of measurable magnitude. But as today's event showed, the Earth is constantly moving, and that's what causes earthquakes, and we are not totally out of the woods, nor is any place. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that 911 saw spike activity. I'm wondering if you had a number of how many calls, but moreover, with any sort of delays or backlog in response?
I do have an answer to your question. I did expect that, or Stu Lozer expected that. 911 experienced a spike of about 6,000 calls. 800 per half an hour at this time of the day is normal. Today's spike to 6,900 per half an hour. 311 experienced a spike of about 4,000 calls. 2,300 per hour at this time of day is normal. Today's spike to 6,300, but as we walked in here, I walked by a screen that shows we've had 41,000 311 calls to this time, and normally we would have 45,000 on a day, so not any delays to speak of. Obviously, you get some bunching, and there's a little more of a wait, but it's certainly the phones weren't, as you would say, ringing off the hooks. I think people realized what it was and went back into buildings after a period of time, and word spread pretty quickly. The fact that there was no damage was comforting to a lot of people. Yes, sir.
After an earthquake like this, are you in touch with any member of the federal government agency or geological agency that might give you a warning of possible aftershock or anything else?
Well, there are likely to be aftershocks, and in fact, there's already been one. But each one typically is less with time and would not be felt this far away. This particular earthquake was felt, I'm told, as far away as New Hampshire. But the one that just occurred at 2 point something is relatively small, much smaller than half the strength of the earthquake that did take place. The scale is a logarithmic scale, so at half it's a lot less. And